Every year, the Royal Institute of British Architects holds a competition to find the UK's best new house. From hundreds of entries, they whittle it down to a long list, then a shortlist, and finally a winner for this great architectural prize. And this year, for the first time, Grand Designs is along for the ride. So, we'll be taking you behind usually closed doors to see some of the finest new architecture in the country. Wow, that's like a cliff of brick. If that isn't a facade, I don't know what is. To discover why these homes are so special. Whose idea was this?
Mummy's.
God, blimey. And most importantly, what they're like to live in.
Sit there, dangle my legs out, cup of coffee. Perfect.
This series is entirely dedicated to great houses of today, homes from which you can take inspiration, which are the exemplars of where design is heading. And then, at the end of the series, we'll be finding out here exclusively on Channel 4 which one of these houses is the RIBA House of the Year for 2015. Looking at great architecture is something of a dream job, really. A wonderful set of experiences that, frankly, we would like to share with you. Buildings are not art, they're not sculpture or music. They're there for people to inhabit. And for that matter, they are also in our built environment. We don't have a choice about whether we engage with them. So they have a public responsibility, if you like, a responsibility to belong and to create some kind of dialogue with where they are. Now, I think that great buildings are those which do more than that, which in creating that dialogue enhance a place, add a new chapter to the story of a place. And to celebrate this idea, every year the Royal Institute of British Architects seeks out the finest newly built houses around the UK by naming Britain's House of the Year. It's the BAFTAs of residential architecture. There's everything from luxurious villas to ingenious and modest homes built on the tiniest of budgets. Each week, we'll visit a choice of homes on the long list and then discover which of them have been shortlisted. And at the end of the series, we'll find out who the 2015 winner is. There's such a diversity of buildings that I've grouped them into some lively categories that try to capture some of the ideas emerging out of architects' minds in 2015. In this first episode, we're going to look at houses that have all been designed for country living. And joining me on this architectural journey are Editor-in-Chief of Elle Decoration, Michelle Agundahin.
Now, this is very dramatic.
And architect Zach Munro.
You said it's the double height space, like you have generally in a house. This is where we keep the double height space.
This first house I'm visiting is in my home county of Somerset. At first glance, there's nothing unusual about this rural scene. But look, what's this? It looks like a brand new barn, something that already blends discreetly with the local farmyard style. Now, there are some brand new agricultural galvanised gates. No farmer in Somerset would buy brand new gates. This must be it. It's a very quiet-looking house. Morning.
Morning.
Good Somerset weather.
It's lovely, isn't it? How are you?
Graham, yeah?
Emily,
how are you?
Very well, thank you.
Yeah, lovely house. Beautiful. I've driven past this before. From the road, it may look like a pleasant, well-kept single-storey house. But there's more. It's built into a steep hill. The entrance level leads to all the main family living areas, including a kitchen, office, snug and guest bedroom, and a large veranda wraps around two sides of the building. While downstairs are 3 family bedrooms and a service area tucked in behind. This house has made the long list partly because of its hybrid language, that of a contemporary Somerset alpine chalet, which also mirrors a nearby barn and slots delicately into its surroundings. For architect Graham and interior designer Emily, the house is both a home and an office. They took a gamble by swapping their life in London wholesale to pursue their dream of living against and in the great outdoors.
Yeah, so this is the main space.
And what a very beautiful room.
We must have spent 4 or 5 years talking about it, didn't we, even before we had this site.
We did a lot of, when we have our country house.
And we came down to an auction here and 7:30 in the evening in Wells and kind of got back to London again. We're just sitting in bed, having bought this thing, saying, God, what have we done?
What have we done?
You bought a site.
Yeah, an old falling down bungalow.
So when you went to see the planners about this, what was their initial response?
They were pretty receptive to it, basically. And they really said, in the end, it'll be up to whether anybody locally has any objections to it.
And did any locals object?
No.
Well, we were really keen to, because we're going to live here, we wanted to meet our neighbours, so we made a timber model of the house, which we took round. And, I think everyone loves a model, but also we genuinely wanted to communicate to them that it was going to be a positive thing, hopefully.
Yeah. The house was built using a hybrid of timber panels and frames and took 3 years to complete. Graham and Emily undertook a lot of the work themselves, and that blurring of the roles between architect, client and builder gives the finished building a tremendous coherence. So this is a room where you cook and eat?
Yep.
And just a little snug sitting room?
Yes.
The moment you walk in here, the sound ends, it's softer. The joinery is sort of unremitting in this building. Inside, the oak goes on and on and on. These doors are oak, are they? They must be solid. And how do they work?
So they just unfold like that. And so then this can become a bedroom at Christmas and things like that.
Very beautifully detailed. Traditional joinery details there, too. You couldn't resist those.
Our joiner couldn't resist those.
Oh, your joiner couldn't resist those. Oh, they weren't specified. This house oozes exquisite craftsmanship, and with it, a serene atmosphere.
We wanted it to feel really timbery everywhere you go, so outside it's got green oak, which is kind of rough sawn. As you come inside, you've got these oak linings everywhere around the reception rooms with this kind of plain oak, which is a kind of more refined version of the cladding outside.
And Graham and Emily's house has been longlisted for another key reason. It's one of only 400 or so buildings in the UK to have been awarded a Passive House Eco Performance Certificate. The large windows allow maximum warmth to enter in the winter months when the sun's low, but are shaded by the verandas in the summer months when the sun's higher, and that helps establish an even year-round temperature. Just one wood burner supplies all the winter hot water. Yearly cost, £150. But in case you're thinking this house seems just too good to be true, come look at this. Come look at this. Look, every beautifully crafted minimal house needs one of these, doesn't it? A junk room. You need somewhere to put all the kit, and every house has one. Yeah, this is the backstage of architecture. This is actually the bowels of the building. This is the big thermal store, all the controls. We just draw a veil, of course, with a beautifully crafted door. We often criticise modern houses for their lack of atmosphere. Not this place.
Yeah, so this is our bit.
Oh, yes, I can tell. Yeah, the rest of the downstairs is really very functional. Painted plywood. Suddenly we're in luxury hotel bedroom land.
We're in the boutique hotel here.
It's great.
And we've got these exposed beams in the bedrooms down here, which is quite an effort to do because you've got to fire protect them. But we thought that sort of thing was really worth it for the atmosphere of the spaces. And we didn't have any children when we moved to Somerset. We've got a 1-year-old and a 4-year-old now, and when they're teenagers, and I hope we've predicted what they might want in their rooms, say, and they can climb out the window and smoke outside or whatever. Yes.
They need a lock when they're 13, that's all. Graham and Emily have built a memorable house that'll continue to slowly stitch itself into its setting and wrap its nurturing, warm, woody fabric around its occupants. This is a very, very good house, and it's taught me something. You know, I think the reason we like traditional architecture in the countryside is because it fits, it's familiar. It's composed of lots and lots of ideas that have been softly, carefully woven into one coherent whole. And what Emily and Graham have shown me is that you can do that with a brand new building. But what does it take to win this competition? Last year's winner was architect Chris Loyne for his wonderful Stormy Castle on the Gower Peninsula. Stormy Castle won because of the exemplary way the building manipulates light and space, and the way that Chris integrated a crystalline piece of modernism into a wild rural setting.
Winning the award is huge for an architect. I don't know if it directly increases your workload. I think it will. But to be recognised by your peers for something as special as this award, I mean, it means a massive amount. It gives you a confidence as well.
And as a previous winner, Chris gets to join this year's judging panel, along with some key RIBA members and a representative from the sponsor, Hiscox Home Insurance.
I get to nose into other architects' great buildings, which is wonderful. I mean, I love nosing around all properties. It's what excites me.
The judges are looking for houses that demonstrate design excellence, fitness for purpose, and sustainability, and that glimmer of delight.
It's got to be beautiful, both inside and out. It's got to suit context, whether that's urban or rural. And client satisfaction. Never ever forget that it is the client's building. It is not yours. And hopefully, if you've done a good job, you'll have a happy client at the end.
Chris and his fellow judges have their work cut out. This year's standard is very high. So far, we've seen one stunning wooden villa in Somerset. There are 4 more extraordinary houses still to go.
This is, to us, it's the sort of modern Swiss chalet.
We're exploring some of the most architecturally ambitious homes in the UK countryside, all of which are in the running to be crowned House of the Year by the Royal Institute of British Architects. This next house is a worthy addition to the great tradition of modernist rural villas. Now, the thing is, when you site your home in the middle of your landscape, what it does is afford you the opportunity to open up the building, to drink in those views from all directions, to capture and frame them. And what a delightful way to cement a relationship with the landscape. Our second nominee this week is in the heart of Sussex, with sweeping views across the South Downs. Zach Munro came to meet its owners, Neville and Nicola. The judges like this building, and it's big at 370 square metres, because of the cool and controlled way it organises space, for the way it reaches out to the landscape, and for its bumpy geometrical roof and triangular skylights. The downstairs of this house is one vast and generous open-plan space containing kitchen, sitting and dining area, organised around a double-height atrium. Wow! There's also a master bedroom on the ground floor, while upstairs there are 3 boutique ensuite guest bedrooms, a cosy sitting room and a study.
Good morning.
Hiya.
Nice to see you.
You too.
I'm Nicola.
Lovely to meet you both.
Neville and Nicola's brief to the architects was simple. The house had to allow them to enjoy their shared passion, the great outdoors. And this great festival of glass does just that, like a camera set on maximum exposure, so that even from the atrium at the back of the house, you're in maximum contact with the landscape, with very little colour inside the building to distract you. Only the bedrooms provide sanctuary from this exposure. Their windows grab specific views of particular plants.
So, this is the entry into the double height space, which is reflecting all of the materials and the views that have really inspired the house.
You said it's the double height space, like you have generally in a house. This is where we keep the double height space.
We love it.
I'm noticing it's not just sort of a big glass box.
We wanted to avoid that. We wanted to try to combine the huge benefits of glass with older materials like timber to give it a warm feel.
The big thing for us was wherever we were, You can look out at the garden or out at the downs, have a great sense of light and space.
This is soaring, uplifting architecture. Big ideas and big contact with the world outside. But a lot of glass means a lot of sun. Too much, and you've got a greenhouse. But by sliding the first floor wooden box slightly forward, hey presto, shade. The geometrical simplicity of one wooden box over another glass one has, however, been developed into something much more homely.
The fireplace, for example, in the winter, is very cosy. It gives extra warmth, and it's flexible again, so you can move it around. It swivels. It swivels.
So we can sit here and have a drink with the fire, then we can swizzle it round and have it facing us whilst we're having dinner.
It's a very precise fire, isn't it? It's sort of, you can have the heat or you can have the heat.
Indeed,
but you can't.
And the other thing that we have to make it cosy is that we've got these felt screens that both block off the kitchen but also makes this room in the winter much more cosy.
I recognise these.
Yes, the roof panels.
Internally, the glass box and wooden box are strongly linked by the staggeringly good atrium. Upstairs, you can almost touch the roof.
Wow. It's very different up here.
I'm very keen on mountains in Switzerland and walking in Switzerland, and so this is, to us, it's the sort of modern Swiss chalet.
The unusual roof design is a defining feature of this house. The architects Julian King and Chantal Wilkinson wanted it to mirror the tree line behind it.
The geometry was quite complex, to say the least. It's the cross-laminated timber panels which form the first floor, effectively, the roof and the walls. There are 147 of them.
These 147 panels now make up the upstairs wooden box and roof. Their material, cross-laminated timber or CLT, is made like plywood by gluing together layers of wood to form giant sheets from which any shape can be cut. Structures made with it are incredibly strong and need little or no supporting beams or trusses. So the architects could turn the bedroom ceilings into an abstract scale model of the Alps.
Prefabrication, this was constructed in about 2 weeks. It came on a couple of articulated lorries with a crane and it was assembled on site.
The panels are cut with lasers, so all the complicated joints, there's three-way kind of really complex mitered joints on every panel.
The tolerances, the control of the accuracy of the building was amazing. I mean, it's within about 10 millimetres, the upper floor.
Why so complicated?
There's the opportunity within the roof space to do something more interesting and to make special spaces, so why not?
Neville and Nicola didn't want this house to appear just plonked down in farmland, but established in its own setting too, with a garden. It fell to the landscape designer Andy Sturgeon to fit the building to its site.
It's futile to try and compete with nature in a site like this. And so I didn't want to put a garden in front of the house. I didn't want to pollute that view, really. So we put the garden aspect, really, the obvious garden, we put that behind the house. So when you pull up in the car, you can actually see the front door, but you have to journey through the garden to get to it, which means that you're immersed in the garden, really, from the outset. And that part of the garden, the arrival sequence, if you like, which has a formal lawn and the formal beds, it is very structured, but you can see that then beyond that, it's much looser. And then within the other parts of the garden, I created different pockets. So there are different seating areas so that you can chase the sun around the garden, you can get the morning sun, and you can see out into the landscape, which is, of course, is the primary reason for being here.
The house and the garden have been lived in and loved by Neville and Nicola for the last year. So, what effect has this place had on them?
How does it feel to live in this very different house?
It's wonderful.
It's certainly changed the way I feel, and being in the house is very uplifting, simply because you are very close to nature. It's just a step or two away, And that's exactly what we wanted in the brief that we gave the architects, and I think they've achieved it superbly.
Extremely well.
It's a very, very personal space to Neville and Nicola. And all of it, you know, within quite an extraordinary bit of landscaping.
Both of the projects we've seen so far take different approaches, but both take context very seriously. They attempt to root themselves where they are. There are 3 more houses yet to see, and then we will find out which of them has made the final shortlist. This series is devoted to exploring the very best new houses in the United Kingdom. Houses which are up for the RIBA House of the Year award, from the most generous and glamorous to the most modest and retiring. This week we're looking at houses in the country. The judges, of course, want to see the relationship between buildings and landscape fully explored. They also want originality, craftsmanship, and imagination. Let's not forget that this is a nationwide competition. Across the whole of the UK, there is some great architecture, but one particular region punches incredibly high above its weight. Northern Ireland has 4 of the total of 20 long-listed projects. That's 1/5 for a population of 1.8 million people, which means that Northern Ireland is producing great award-winning architecture 7 times faster than the rest of the UK. Farmer and architect Patrick Bradley wanted to build himself a signature house on his parents' farm near Londonderry. The site he wanted was tricky, cherished by his family for its beauty, added to which he had very little money. Grand Designs covered the remarkable story of this project back in 2014. Paddy, this is just, oh, wow, this is just brilliant. This is mind-blowing. This house is very neat. It's made from 4 shipping containers. And it's an object lesson in how to transform an awkward site into a great home for just £135,000. The top 2 containers rest on a small rise in the land and have been joined to make one kitchen, dining and living space, with the front door at one end and a projecting balcony at the other. The lower 2 containers are set at right angles to those above and house 2 bedrooms and the bathroom. But Patrick's plan to cantilever the containers meant that some major engineering challenges needed solving first. So this is how containers really work. They are designed and have been evolved over decades in order that you can stack them like this, 10 containers high. The load from that great pile of containers is being transferred through the corners of the containers, and that way the structure can withstand massive pressures. They are not, however, designed to be stacked like this, placing a weak middle section on top of a weak middle section, which could just then crush and collapse. Despite entrusting a favourite spot on the farm to Patrick, his mother wasn't convinced there would be a happy ending. You want to come over there? You want to come over and have a look at them? Do you think?
I don't know, Kevin.
You should.
I'm withholding my judgment until then.
It's fine. Patrick wanted big windows and stairs, which would involve cutting large holes in the walls and floors. But that immediately compromised the structural integrity of the containers. Solution: add back in 10 tons of steel reinforcements. And it worked. A mere 10 weeks after this. Oh, goodness me. Oh, Patrick. This is very good. Through the front door up above, what were the 2 giant containers is now one seamless space, with kitchen and living areas all of a piece. I like this. What a treat. Up here, there's no sense of containment, but connection, through big windows to the distant landscape. It's all about this view, isn't it? You know, that that way, that way, that way. I love the way that rusty orange frame just separates the wildflower bit from the field beyond. You know, it's just a nice little architectural detail, that little frame. And this is pure genius. Fake grass, wild forest, and mountain beyond. Down we go. Look at this, down the golden staircase. And wherever possible, Patrick has exploited the industrial and agricultural language of raw steel, along with a sprinkling of fairy dust. Oh, look, poetry on the glass wall.
That's the Grill of Water. It's the only poem I ever wrote about the water just runs past.
It's about this river. Oh, gosh. There's a little fairy spot where we folk used to dwell. Long ago, when I was young, I knew it so well. So what happens here? A bit of a balcony or something? Does that goes in?
Nothing.
Really?
Sit there, dangle my legs out, cup of coffee. Perfect.
Yeah, lovely. First thing in the morning. I may have been overwhelmed by the quality of Patrick's building, but the sternest judgment was, of course, yet to come from his mother. What do you think of it now?
To be honest, Kevin, I have to admit I was wrong. I thought these containers, no, Patrick, I thought no good. But now, darling, fabulous. So proud of it. We couldn't believe how well it turned out. We couldn't imagine how beautiful it turned out. I think it's more beautiful, Kevin, than it was. I genuinely do, but it means a lot to us all. It really does.
I won't cliche and say I told you so.
Like all the houses in the RIBA competition, Patrick's was finished in 2014. A year on, I caught up with him at the Hauser & Worth Pavilion in Somerset to find out how life in his shipping container home has measured up. Here's a really contemporary building, and when we made that programme, one of the interesting ideas was just how radical it was in that part of Northern Ireland, you know. It seems to me that actually what you're doing is probably far more adventurous than some of the stuff that's happening on the mainland.
We do seem to have a lot of pride in us as recently in what we do as architects and what we can construct and design, and we are willing to push the boundaries, and we are pushing the boundaries. But at the same time, I always maintain that a happy building is happy people. And so when people go to see a building, they admire a building and they smile, you know you've done something right. And how is the house now? It has actually worked exactly the way I wanted it, which I knew it always was going to work like that, but maybe not as good, to be honest.
Well, great.
But so I'm really happy for that.
Patrick's exemplary home takes rural architecture in Northern Ireland to new stratospheric heights. It writes a new vernacular language. The judges were so impressed by Grilla that they said that it offers new promise to its landscape. What an extraordinary thing to achieve. In the 21st century, a great building ought also to use the resources needed to make it and run it frugally. Architecture should be sustainable and responsible. This next house was commissioned by a couple who've spent their entire lives close to the land. Zach Monroe has come to see it in the charming village of Palgrave in Suffolk. Stackyard is a red cedar-clad house sitting on a concrete base, angled to enjoy sun from the south and west sides. The owners decided they wanted a modern retirement home that met the highest energy efficiency standards and tucked itself into the agricultural buildings and landscape around it. Inside, Stackyard is much more complex and delightful than its simple box-like exterior suggests. The house is only 2 stories high, but has 4 mezzanine levels to it. Burrowed down at basement level are the guest bedrooms. The ground floor has a kitchen and dining room. At upper ground is the living room and study. And above that, just peeping over the parapet, is the master bedroom, from which the owners can enjoy sweeping views of the fens. Stackyard's architect, Meredith Bowles, is Zach's guide for the day.
Hello, Zach.
Hiya. Nice to meet you.
Come on in.
Ooh.
As soon as you step through the front door, it becomes clear why this house was longlisted.
I really love it when you come into a house and the first thing you get is a wash of top light like this.
Well, it's quite a wide house. It's a square plan, so to get this light coming right down into the middle, you know, really enlivens it once you walk in. But you can also open it out, so if the house becomes warm in the summer, it acts like a chimney or a funnel and takes that hot air away. So it's functional as well as beautiful.
This is not an open-plan house, but one with a variety of interconnecting informal spaces and rooms that repeatedly delighted the judges.
This is half a level up. This is the living room that looks out across onto the landscape. So we have secondary bedrooms underneath us that, you know, bring us up to get that view.
And who lives here?
So this is Ian and Jane's house. Jane's family owned the farmhouse, which is just behind us, and this was the stackyard. This was where the hay was stacked at the end of the summer. So this partly explains the form of the building and where it sits in relation to the other agricultural buildings and why we chose the name Stackyard for it.
The master bedroom is a lofty perch, a control tower that affords great views over the surrounding countryside and satisfies a major passion of its owner, Ian: birdwatching.
We're slightly hunkered down in this space that, again, has a slightly sheltered quality, but at the same time, you know, like a bird hide where you're not wanting to be seen but want to see. It has that quality about it.
Now you say a bird hide, it makes sense, because with your raised parapet and your levels, you do actually get that sort of slot that you'd have in a bird hide.
Yeah.
Just looking around, waiting for them to come.
Yeah, which they will. There's nests just around the corner of house martins. There's house martins there, and around the front there's swift boxes that are built into the facade.
There are 3 other new outbuildings here, one of which is the owner Jane's studio. The judges particularly liked the way Stackyard, like Patrick's house, makes a contribution to the agricultural and historical setting here.
It's really clear as well how you have very different materials, all from the same kind of, what sort of farm language, but yeah, this lovely black corrugated stuff. And then on this building, you do have the kind of timber. This is the first time I can kind of see this kind of apparent concrete. I can see kind of the formwork boards and everything on this.
Which have gone a beautiful grey, which is similar to the concrete. So the whole thing is beginning to blend into the landscape.
The no-nonsense corrugated rural language of Stackyard is something that Meredith has evolved in East Anglia. His practice, Mole Architects, won this competition back in 2004 with the Black House in Ely. The Black House is highly eco-efficient, but Meredith's gone further with Stackyard, using passive house design software to achieve an exceptionally low level of energy consumption.
You see, this is the guts of a passive house. You've got the air handling unit keeping everything kind of warm. You've got water heated by the sun coming in and powering the underfloor heating and being stored for the baths and the showers. And you've got all the rainwater being used to flush all the toilets. That's brilliant.
Stackyard treads imperceptibly lightly on the planet. It's a new and appropriate kind of country house.
Though it borrows heavily from farm buildings, everything about this house has been designed for the client's enjoyment of the land, the wildlife, and ultimately, their golden years. It's a very personal piece of design, and it has within it a lot of warmth.
We've now seen 4 of the 5 houses on the long list. However, there is one more house to look at, and then we'll learn which of the 5 have made it to the shortlist, and this one is a real humdinger. New houses in open countryside don't always have to mimic farmhouses and barns to succeed. The dialogue with the landscape doesn't always have to be an agricultural one. And in searching for a new relationship with place, there are other ideas we should consider. Things like rusty steel, shipping containers, and ziggurats. Yes, that's right. A 4th century BC style Mesopotamian terraced pyramid, near Aylesbury, no less. And editor-in-chief of Elle Decoration, Michelle Agundahin, has been to see it. Flint House sits on the estate of Wadston Manor, the family seat of the Rothschild banking dynasty, and it's designed to look as though a wedge of geological strata has been pushed up through the turf. The simple geometry contains a sequence of rooms that are certainly not open plan. The front door is placed unceremonially on one side and opens onto the kitchen, dining and sitting areas with a private study at the thick end of the wedge. Above, there are 3 bedrooms fitted neatly into the rising volume of the triangle, and the main building is mirrored by the house's baby twin. Despite the almost science fiction scary shape of this building, inside it's remarkably domestic and homely. Familiar rectangular rooms feel comfortably carved out of the big shape. It's all very reassuring. So, who might or could build something as radical as this? Who has the resources to fund it? Of course, if he or she owns something like this, well, then they're going to have inherited some architectural adventurism. In this case, Lord Rothschild.
Good morning.
Hello.
Thank you so much for showing me your house.
Waddesdon Manor was a revelation in its day. Built by Baron Ferdinand de Rothschild in 1889 as a layer cake inspired by almost every French chateau ever built. It was so exciting that Queen Victoria invited herself to see it and its newfangled electric lighting. 125 years later, the Rothschilds are still pushing architectural boundaries.
This house seems to me so remarkable for its shape and the materials it's made of. I need to know, was this in your mind's eye right from the beginning?
No, in fairness to Charlotte Skinner-Catlin, the architect, she had most of the big ideas. But the big idea, which I completely embrace, is that in this beautiful place, where all the streams on the property converge, that it should look somehow like a rock in the landscape.
And it was the geological location of this site that provided the inspiration for the architect Charlotte Skinner-Catlin.
We started looking at geological maps, and there's a chalk fault line that runs from Norfolk through Buckinghamshire down to the South Downs, where it emerges finally in the White Cliffs of Dover. And that became a very intriguing and exciting thing for us.
Charlotte's decision to somehow incorporate flint as the major visible material of this building immediately raised the question, how many builders know anything at all about flint? Since 1989, David Smith's company has been specialising in the conservation and restoration of flint and lime masonry.
What's special about the Flint house is not just the colour change, but also the texture change. The flint at the bottom is worked very little compared with the intense work that went on as the building went up, and gradually ending up in the chalk, which is the 6th layer, to be very smooth. And as the light goes around the building, you can really see different textures, different shadows to the actual building.
The glinting sparkle of this building was achieved by knapping. David and his team hand broke each one of the 80 tons of flint and then used over 1 million gallets or flint shards to fill the gaps in the mortar. The entire process took 6 men, 8 months. That's 4 man-years of patronage, sustaining a traditional building craft.
Is flint a dying art, or is there a revival going on? Well, we hope the Flint house will encourage more architects and more people to see just how versatile flint can be in a material and how it could be used in a modern building.
I love flint and think it's an incredibly beautiful material. And it's very important that this particular tradition in English building, I think, is preserved and continues.
I'm dying to see inside.
Okay.
Can we go in?
Yeah, sure, let's go in.
Oh, gosh. Now, this is very dramatic. The building is curious to me because it appears to be a sort of wonderful wedge shape, but then there's half of it seems to be separated from the main mothership.
Yeah,
Why is that?
I mean, first of all, in terms of space, I think it's really nice to have an annex over there where a child that's growing up or whoever can go, or it's a studio. I think it works very well, actually, the complement of that little building near this one.
Flint House is sited at a low point on the estate, meaning there's plenty of water around. So the architect saw a chance to reimagine an historical obsession, the grotto. A stream has been diverted to wind its way through the cave-like middle of the house.
Well, this is a rather extraordinary concept, to have a grotto in the heart of your home with a stream running through it. Most people try and keep water out of the centre of their homes.
Well, we thought it's so beautiful that we would continue the look of the stream around the house. So again, all the time, there's this effort to relate the beauty of the outside to the inside. And I think this particular bit of the house works really extremely well.
This is a wonderfully sort of sedate staircase,
Well,
as if
quite,
we're
yeah, well, there's an
approaching...
excitement at the end. We hope.
Upstairs, the generous windows and balconies again succeed in connecting the house to the countryside around it.
We're right at the very sort of top here, aren't we?
No, it's an amazing experience. I mean, you are in the trees almost, and I think this adds a whole new chapter to the Waddesdon experience, which will give joy and pleasure to, I hope, countless numbers of people in the century ahead.
This house has turned making a connection to the landscape into an art form. Crafting a story out of flint and chalk is inspired. It links the building directly to the very geology of this site. It is quite simply less building than an architectural sculpture for living in.
We've now seen all 5 extraordinary new country homes on the long list, all potential winners of this year's RIBA House of the Year award. A Somerset eco-barn weaves itself into its setting and reinterprets timber craftsmanship. Sussex has just got more beautiful thanks to this elegantly proportioned villa that drinks in the landscape under an origami roof. In East Anglia, there's a fresh and ecological interpretation of the agricultural that owners and house martins love equally. Rural Northern Ireland has been propelled into the future with Patrick's rusty container architecture that redefines a relationship with place. And in Buckinghamshire, the rock has been lifted out of the ground, polished and carved into to make a home. The moment's now arrived to discover which of these 5 houses has made it onto that shortlist. Last year's winner, Chris Loyne, and his fellow judges debated the merits of each candidate for days. But eventually, the decision was reached. So, Chris, tell me about the first project that you put onto the shortlist.
First one has to be this one. It's Flint House. Absolutely beautiful, exquisite bit of construction, design. The detailing on it is fantastic, and it sits within the landscape beautifully. There's another part to the building which isn't shown on this model, which echoes this format in a smaller scale. And it just sits there in the different lights, morning mist, evening sunlight. It's gorgeous.
The judges also commended Flint House for its poetic form, utter originality, and the power of a simple idea.
It's really exciting that it's been shortlisted because it is a real work of architecture, quite different to anything else that's been, I think, built in this country. Great for you. It's full of inspired ideas, so I think it's very interesting.
But from this week's projects, not 1, but 2 go forward to the final round. So tell me about the next project on your shortlist.
Next project is Sussex House. Fascinating project, hunkered up against a tree belt, tight on the edge of their site.
It very confidently connects out to that landscape, doesn't it?
It certainly does. It wraps a beautiful, beautiful garden. The landscaping is exquisite. It's manicured in some spots, and it's slightly wild in others, and it's got vegetables. So it's all part of the home, part of the house. It's very cleverly integrated, the two.
The RIBA judges also liked the way this somewhat monastic building quietly commands its setting and reserved special praise for the inspiring atrium.
It's absolutely brilliant to be shortlisted. We're really delighted. And it's a very competitive field. There's some fantastic projects, lots of brilliant buildings, so it's just wonderful that ours has been selected.
Sussex House and Flint House are two outstanding homes. Over the series, we'll continue to search for the remaining houses that'll make it onto the shortlist. And in doing so, we'll come closer to understanding what a house in the 21st century needs to do. Is it possible to put together a list of what makes a great building? Well, 2,000 years ago, the Roman architect Vitruvius tried just that, and that list of his, of just 3 ideas, still remains valuable to architects. He said that good buildings should have firmness, commodity, and delight, by which he meant that they should be really well built and solid and fit for purpose. They should also be easy to use and ergonomic, and they should have something of the heart. They should bring happiness and joy. And I've always thought that great buildings ought to make us feel like better human beings. They ought to lift the spirits, that they should make a contribution to place, but also to our civilization. That is one hell of a list, isn't it? Next time, we go in search of buildings that have solved one of the hardest of architectural problems, building on awkward urban plots. I'm very struck by this view, though. It's more like a sort of planted parkland.